everyone, my name is Takacs. Welcome to my channel. I'm the Streamline Seamstress. I was a pattern maker, a designer, and I owned a sewing factory for many years. And this channel is all about learning, helping you learn how to save time, money, and energy and streamline your sewing. And today I'm going to show you one of my favorite things to make as a gift for a man or a woman, a child, anyone, ages 8 to 80. This is the perfect gift. So this is a Mobius scarf. And as you can see, I made this out of 2 different prints. And make sure, yeah, the camera's got it. And you can see it's got that twist in the middle, and that twist is the key to a gorgeous scarf. It lays beautifully. It's not bulky. It's very comfortable. And this one, we have another video that shows you how to make just the basic Mobius scarf, a winter scarf. And this one has a zipper pocket in it. So this is great for travel. If you're traveling, if you're taking a walk and you want to put your cell phone or you want to have your ID or anything in there, and then it's just right with you. You don't have to worry about getting in your bag if you're on an airplane, or if you're taking a walk and you don't want to take your bag with you, but you want to have your music and your buds for your walk while you walk the dog. So this one was made with love for a girl that works for me, Olivia from the Alfredo Salon out in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. I'm getting my hair done tomorrow. I'm excited to give this to her. But this video is a little long, but I go into depth and show you how to make the zipper pocket, how to cut and line everything up beautifully. So for our new sewers, this video is for you. If you're a veteran sewer, there's going to be parts of this that you already know and understand. Just hit chapters below and fast forward to what you do not know so that you can streamline through the video. And that's pretty much it. All of the tools and supplies that I use today will be listed in the description below. And let's get started. Let's make this gorgeous scarf. So I'm so excited. I have 2 beautiful prints today. This lovely paw print and this gorgeous plaid, and they're in the same color family. So I'm really excited to see how this is going to turn out. And I've cut 2 panels, and when I cut the fleece for a scarf, I cut it the full width of the fabric, and most fleece fabrics are 58 to 60 inches, and this one turned out to be one slightly bigger than the other, but they're both right around 60 inches, and we'll clean that up later. But I've cut them 9 inches wide is my standard for most adults, 10 for big tall, and then if I'm dealing with someone that's petite, I might bring that into 8 inches. And again, if I'm doing something for a grade school child, I might bring it in and make it a little more narrow at 7. And here is my puppy paw pocket. I've used 1 fabric for the pocket, making sure that the length of the pocket doesn't have any stretch. So make sure when you cut that, you get that right. And then when you purchase a zipper, and you can use an invisible zipper or a regular polyester zipper, know that the measurement is from the stop of the zipper to the pull of the zipper, and that there's always this excess from the tabs. And in this case, it was 8.5 on the zipper, and then I made it 7.5 on the width of the pocket. So it's 8.5 long by 7.5 wide. And that's just enough to put your phone, your essentials in. That's all we want to do with this, is be able to travel with our scarf and be comfy. Sometimes it's hard to tell which side is the good side on a fleece. One side is going to be really vivid, and the other side is going to be a little bit blurry. And as you can see, you can definitely tell that the opposite side here is the vivid side. And so I'm going to take a pin right where I notched in the center, and I notched all 4 sides in the center of both scarves, and I'm going to thread pins in there to indicate the good side of the fabric, so that regardless of what lighting I'm in, there's no confusion. And you can see I've got those pins, and I've got my notches for center of the scarf between the 60 inches, and I'm going to go up from center, and I'm going to mark just a little mark with tailor's chalk at 5/8 of an inch. And that is going to be the starting point for the tabs on my zipper. So when I line everything up, it's going to just line up beautifully because I know on each side of each panel where to start my zipper. And now I'm going to mark my seam allowance so that I know exactly where the teeth of the zipper will match up on my scarf. And it sounds a little confusing. It's not. It's just a lot of prep work. So I'm going to take this tailor's chalk and I'm going to mark at 5/8 of an inch because that's the seam allowance that we're using on the scarf. 5/8 of an inch on both panels down both sides. And sometimes fleece doesn't take well to tailor's chalk, but on the other side of the coin, I like it because it just brushes right out very easily. And in this case, that's exactly what we want. So I just had to go over that a second time. And now I'm going to do the side 2 panel. And again, I'm going to go from the marking that we did at the bottom, 2 inches up from center, where the tab will be sewn in for the zipper, the beginning point. And I'm just going up about 8-9 inches so that I can see that line. And I'm going to also fold and press as like double insurance on this so that I can see where that zipper is going when I'm putting it in. And you can see I've got the right side of the fabrics up because I've got my pins there in the center notches. And then the zipper is just going to fit right in there. And you can use, again, you can use an invisible zipper or a regular zipper. I find that either works well. Just make sure that you have that marking of where the beginning point is for your zipper to be sewn in. Now we're going to go through the same process with the pockets. I've got the right side of the fabric up and I'm going to mark it at 5/8 of an inch with tailor's chalk. And the second pocket. Again, this is the right side of the fabric and I'm just using my acrylic ruler and tailor's chalk to make that marking. I'll list all the products that I use and tools that I use today in the description below for you. So if you need anything, you can just, I'll have some links there for you. And at this point, I think that we're ready to go to the iron and start a nice press. If your eyes are not what they used to be, you can also use a little piece of paper and mark it at 5/8 of an inch, a construction paper or craft paper, and then use that as a guideline so that you can see better when you're pressing at the ironing board. So before we start sewing, we're going to do some pressing. I'm going to take this zipper and I'm just going to press out all the wrinkles from being in the package. I might need to open it up and press it close to the zipper teeth. And then here we have the pockets, and as you can see, we've got that 5/8 of an inch marking, and I'm just giving it a nice little press going across. And I am pressing the right side up. This is a hot roller and it has measurements on it and you can iron over it. So if your eyes are not that good or you just can't see that line that we made on the scarf, a hot roller is a nice item to have for your sewing room. You can also use that piece of paper with the marking on it, but the hot roller is just a good staple to have for your sewing room. I'll make sure to put the link for that below. So I have my right side marked and I am going to press the scarf at 5/8 of an inch because that's my seam allowance. And I am going to give you a double screen here so that we can speed things up a little bit. And I'm using the hot roller again here, even though I marked it I just wanted to show you how you could use this to press your 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to press it a little longer than I need, the length of the zipper or the zipper pocket. And I'm pressing it all the way from that center notch up to past what I feel that I need, just so that I have a nice clean press line. And as you can see in the bottom, I'm using that piece of paper that's marked at 5/8 of an inch. So that's an alternate, less expensive option for you. And there's my nice press seam, and I'm going to match up my zipper right to it. So I'm back at the cutting table, and I have laid out my scarves, my zipper, and the pockets. And we have the fabric laid together exactly as we're going to sew it in. I have the fabric facing up. The good side of the fabric is facing up, and I know that because I have my pins marked in there with my notch. I've got the good side of the pocket facing the good side of the scarf. And now we have the zipper, and I am going to place the zipper face down for the moment. And I'm just going to show you how this works. We're going to pin. It's going to just fit in there just nicely. We are going to pin just one side of the scarf first and then do the other. And we're going to start where that marking is that we did, that went across the scarf. That was 2 inches up from center. And we are going to flip the zipper face down, and starting at that marking 2 inches up from center, I'm going to pin the tabs down on the zipper just to make sure that we have the right placement. And then I'm going to work my way up and start. Yeah, so you can see the marking on both sides. So we want to make sure that everything matches up. But I'm going to start matching up that pressed seam that we did at 5/8 of an inch and pinning so that the teeth of the zipper are parallel with that 5/8 of an inch press. That's the most important part about what we're doing here, is just making sure that that zipper just matches with that seam. We're going to sew from the stop at the bottom to the pull at the top. And you're going to know when you're at the pull at the top because the machine's not going to let you go past that. It's too thick. We do not want to sew the tabs down. We're going to do that after we sew the pocket in. So we're just going to go basically stop to pull on the zipper. And now that we have the scarf pinned to the zipper, it's time to pin the pocket in. And the pocket is basically, this creates a sandwich. We are going to have the zipper in between the right side of the scarf and the right side of the pocket. So now I'm going to take that pressed seam, and I'm just going to make sure that it's matching up perfectly with the teeth of the zipper as I'm pinning everything in place. And since I pressed it at 5/8 of an inch, this should actually all match up on the raw edge when I put the raw edges together of the scarf and the pocket. You can also put pins in the opposite direction if you want. Sometimes that helps if you run them parallel with a zipper. It's kind of, you're sewing a little bit blind when you have the zipper sandwiched in between two fabrics, and those pins being parallel with a zipper can help a little bit, especially if you're new to sewing in a zipper and you want some kind of guideline. You can always pull them out as you're sewing. But we're ready. We've got it marked from the stop to the pull, and we're ready to take this to the machine and sew this first side of the scarf, and then we'll come back and pin the second side and sew that one in. And as you can see, I have the pins. I made them parallel with the zipper, and I have my jersey needle in. I have my zipper foot. You can see indentation on either side, and I am gonna have the presser foot to the right, and the needle is on the left. And I'm going to sew at 5/8 of an inch. I'm starting where the stop is. And I'm going to get my needle down and do a little back tack here. And I can't really sew at 5/8 of an inch, but I'm going to get as close to 5/8 of an inch as I can. I don't want to sew the zipper, but I want to get right in that seam allowance. And I have my crease is my guideline. And those pins are also helping. That's letting me know that my zipper is just right there. My zipper is right to the left of my needle. And I just want to get in nice and tight so that zipper fits perfectly. And as I'm coming up to the stop, I'm taking out that last, but I'm using my pointer. Again, I see that crease, so that crease is also an indication for me. And you can see right here, the machine does not want to go any further, so I'm going to back tack them. That's because that pull is at the top of that zipper. And just look, it turned out beautiful. And now we can do the other side. Again, I've pinned everything in. I started with I've got my crease here. You can clearly see that crease. And we've got a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So it's 5/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric to the crease. I want to come in at like 4/8 of an inch and just come in as close to that zipper as I possibly can. I have a pin at the very top there that marks where the stop is. I've opened the zipper because it's going to be a little bit easier for us to sew the second side of the scarf to the zipper. Just gives us a little more flexibility. And I'm going to get right in. Again, I'm starting where the stop is on the zipper. I've got a pin there to mark it. I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to put my needle down. And again, I'm getting in right where that crease is. Sewing at 4/8 of an inch, but as close to 5/8 of an inch as I can get without actually sewing that zipper down. And that crease tells me where 5/8 of an inch is. So my needle should be just right of that crease as I'm sewing. And I'm just going to take my time. You can even, if your machine has a slow setting, I think this is a great time to take advantage of that. And again, I'm just using that crease that we made with the iron and sewing at 5/8 of an inch, but being careful not to sew on top of the teeth of the zipper. All right, so I'm going to stop after a few inches here, and I'm going to do a back tack and then pull away, clip, and then I'm going to close that zipper, and it's going to make it easier for us to finish. Hey, if you're learning anything, be sure to hit the like button for me and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. I'd really appreciate that. And if you have any hacks or tricks on putting on zippers that you'd like to share, be sure to leave a comment below for us. I'm sure that everyone in the community would appreciate that. So I'm closing the zipper, and I'm just going to come back in and just blend in with that seam where I stopped a few inches before the end. Back tack to knot it. And then I'm just going to come right up until I can no longer sew any further because of the pull. I'm making sure all my layers are good, nice and smooth underneath. Sometimes with fleece it's so bulky it's hard to tell. And I'm using my pointer as my third hand and my guide. Pointers come in really handy when you're not using pins. And just using that seam allowance that we pressed earlier. And I'm going to come straight to the end. And then just back tack. And the machine, the presser foot is going to not want to proceed any further when it hits that pull. So that's a great indication that you know that you're there successfully, and you should just stop sewing there. So On each side of the zipper, I want to sew about 2 inches of the seam allowance just to make sure that we have a nice clean seam. And I'm going to continue to use the zipper foot because it's advantageous to us to do so. It's going to help us get in nice and tight. So about 2-3 inches up from one side of the zipper pocket for the scarf seam allowance at 5/8 of an inch. I am going to take the pocket and the zipper tabs and everything there that's bulky, and I'm just going to pull it towards me and just get all the bulk out of the way. And the idea here is to just blend that 5/8 of an inch seam straight into the 5/8 of an inch seam that we made with the zipper when we sewed in the zipper. And again, the zipper foot is going to help here because we have the needle on the opposite side and the bulk of the presser foot on the opposite side, and we got right in nice and tight, and it was beautiful. And now I'm going to repeat that on the opposite side. We have our notches that indicate the center of the scarf panels, and that's about 2 inches because that's what we marked it earlier. It's about 2 inches up from center, and we are just going to start straight stitch at 5/8 of an inch. And again, I'm using the zipper foot. I'm going to continue with that, and I'm pulling those tabs, the tabs to the zipper, the pocket, all of that bulk, and I'm just making sure that it's to the right of my seam allowance, getting it nice and flush. I'm using my pointer. I'll put the link below for my bamboo pointer. Everybody always asks me about that, and it's the tool probably I use the most and I've had the longest. Maybe not the longest. And we've just blended right into that seam. I'm going to do a little back tack to secure. Voila. Beautiful. And there we go. Sometimes I use the wheel by hand just so that I can get into tight places, and in that case it worked out really well. And trim everything up, and then let's see. Take our pins out here. Yeah, perfect. That zipper is in perfect. And now it's time to finish the pocket, which is pretty easy. We're going to keep that zipper foot on there because, again, it's going to work to our advantage to finish. And we are just going to start at one side. And I love sewing fleece. It's so easy to sew. But we're just going to go one side, the bottom, and then across the other side. And we're going to have the same issue that we had when we were sewing the seam closed on the scarf, is that we've got some bulk there. So we want to push that bulk out of the way. And so in this case, I'm going to be pushing all those tabs and the scarf, and I'm going to be pushing it to my left so that I can get a nice clean seam on the pocket at 5/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to do a straight stitch, back tack a little bit to knot it and secure it. And then it's easy breezy, just straight down. We're just going to sew around all 3 sides, pivot and turn at 5/8 of an inch. And pivot and turn here. Oops. There we go. We got it. Another pivot and turn. And again, moving that bulk towards me away from the seam so that I do not catch it in my seam. And at 5/8 of an inch. Perfect. Now I'm going to clip the corners and then just do a quick clean with scissors to remove the excess bulk from all 3 sides. Being careful not to cut the tabs or the scarf there when I'm coming in on that edge that's close to the scarf. Now we're going to sew all 4 tabs down to the scarf seam allowance. We're just going to back tack, and that's just like a forward backwards, just a few stitches. that black tab from the zipper, I just want to sew it to the seam allowance on the scarf. Just a few forwards, backwards. If I had a zigzag presser foot, I'd probably use a zigzag here, but I still have that zipper foot on. I haven't changed the foot yet. And just forward, backwards, bar tack, back tack, just to give it substance so that it holds on to the scarf and it's not floating in there loosely, going to cause any problems for us. And there we go. It's all, look at how beautiful that turned out. The zipper's perfect. And then as you can see, we sewed the 2 inches beyond the zipper on either side just to base that in. We've got the pocket, we've trimmed that all down, and it looks lovely. And now we're ready to finish the scarf, and from this point it's going to go relatively quickly. It's pretty easy from here. The more complicated part about doing this is the zipper. We've got 2 panels here, and if you're using 1 panel, it's a little bit harder. The 2 panels actually makes this a little bit easier to sew. And so now we're ready to go to the next step. So now it's time to finish the scarf, sewing both panels together. And I'm going to start in the middle where we cut those notches, and I am just going to put a pin just about every 5 inches or every hand width. Fleece has a tendency to move and grow a little bit when you're sewing it, so pinning it is a good thing. Sometimes it seems like you do not need to, but it's a really smart move. As you can see, I'm using my little flat magnetic pin cushion, and I've got a video for you on how you can make that for yourself. And also the wristlet that I'm using that holds my pins is also magnetic, and it's so tiny and thin, and it literally holds about 50 pins. So that's a great video. I'm going to insert that for you. But here we go. I'm going down the other side, both sides, and just pinning about every hand, every 5 or 6 inches. I'm using a fabric weight here from the factory that we had. Sometimes that comes in handy. It's like a 3rd hand. And I'm at the machine, and I'm going to sew at 5/8 of an inch. I'm just going to get everything in place. Everything's nice and flat. I've got my jersey needle in. I've got my pointer. And I'm just going to do 5/8 of an inch. Straight down. I'm holding the fabric on the left side just so that I'm keeping the weight off of the machine so that it gives me a nice straight seam allowance. When I get to the end of the seam, I'm definitely going to back tack to knot, just like I did at the start. And there we go. And now the other side. And I think this is the side that has the zipper pocket. So we're going to sew to the seam that we blended into the zipper. I'm going to back tack that, knot it, clip it, and then go to the other side. And where that 2-inch seam allowance is from the zipper, we're just going to pick that up, blend in, and keep going. When I get to the end here, I'm going to back tack just to lock my knots in. And I'm going to clean up that straight edge when we get back to the cutting table. All right, we're good. And I'm going to use a ruler, and I've lined it up on the lines on the ruler both ways, the edge of the scarf and the end of the scarf, and I've just cut off the excess fabric to give myself a nice clean straight edge. Same thing here. This turned out to be 60 inches when finished, which is, I think, the ideal length for petite, tall women, men. It's just a perfect length. And now I'm going to use my rotary mat and wheel to trim the seam allowance on the scarf down to 1/4 inch because I want to remove that bulk. And as I get close to the pocket, I'm just going to just kind of blend that in. And I'll go to the other side of the pocket, probably flip it over, working with the direction going towards the pocket. And you can use scissors here, but in this scenario, the rotary mat and wheel is just a great product. Also, if you have a serger, you could use a serger to sew these seams together, which I do have a serger, but I just wanted to show everyone that you can make this on a sewing machine. You do not have to have a serger to make this scarf. And I'm trimming at 1/4 inch, the full 60 inches on both sides of the scarf on the inside. And we have trimmed the seam allowances, and now I'm going to use my arm and just turn this scarf right side out. And I'm just going to finger press, and you can press this. I'm going to take it to the iron and give this a nice press before the next step. But just look at how gorgeous that turned out. And I'll be right back as soon as I am finished giving this scarf a nice press. So I've pressed my scarf and I'm back at the cutting table, and I have it folded in half. And this is really simple. It's folded in half, and now I am just going to, at center, give it a twist so that the same sides of the fabric are facing each other. And when I match up the ends, I'm going to match the seams to each other, and the color block should be opposite. So the paw print is opposite of each other, as is the plaid. I'm going to take some pins and make sure to symmetrically line that up and pin that. And then I'm just going to continue to pin, just getting everything secure in place. And I'm going to get over to the other two seams and make sure that they are matching up seam for seam right there in the center. I'm going to flip the seam allowance one way on one panel and the opposite direction on the other panel. And it's getting a little difficult to continue pinning, so I am going to just really gently start stuffing the scarf back in itself. And it's going to make it easier for me to finish sewing that tube. I'm just going to kind of like, you know how you put socks together and you just kind of like stuff them all in together. That's exactly what we're doing here. I hope Olivia loves this scarf because I'm having so much fun making it. But see, we've just created just like you do your socks. We've got both sides pinned. I'm going to continue pinning around, but I'm going to leave myself about a 3-inch opening just before where the seam allowances meet. I don't want to do it where the seam allowances are. I want to make sure on each of those seam allowances to sew it down, but right in the middle there, about 3 inches. And I'm going to mark my pins the opposite direction, so that's my indication that I know to stop sewing between those. Start at one and stop at the other. And there we are. We have a perfect circle. We're going to start at this first pin and then just sew all the way around. And I am going to sew this at 3/8 of an inch to make it really easy so that I do not need to trim any seam allowance. And I'm going to remove the attachment so that I can use my free arm on my sewing machine. Free arm is for like cuffs and collars, and it allows you to sew in a tube or in a circle, which is perfect for this. And here we go. We're just going to tuck it in, straight stitch, probably 12 stitches per inch. I want a nice tight stitch on this. And we're going to start at that first pin, that white pin that I had pinned the opposite direction. And sew in a circle. And if you do not have a free arm attachment on your machine to do cuffs and collars and things like that, your machine's pretty old. Might be time to buy a new one, or if it's in good shape, God bless you. I apologize for my hand getting in the way. I'm using my pointer and I'm back tacking on those where those seams meet up, just to make sure that everything is secure and strong so that the garment has integrity in case of any weight or, any pulling on it. Wherever we have seams, it's always a good idea to add a little bit of that extra security. And again, I'm coming up on where the two seams meet. And I'm going to go over this. I'm using my pointer to push those seam allowances down. And again, I'm going to back tack just a little bit just to add some integrity and strength to the garment. And there's my pin just past that that's indicating for me to stop. So I'm going to pull that pin out. I have my 3-inch opening. Perfect. And now we get to turn our scarf right side out, and we're almost finished. I'm so excited. And I've trimmed those tabs on those seams on a diagonal just to remove any excess bulk. And just very gently, I'm going to pull this scarf inside out, just like you would pull your socks or your pantyhose inside out. I love how these two prints worked out so well together. It was kind of a serendipitous accident. I wanted to make it black in Paul's, and it turned out plaid in Paul's because I couldn't find my black fabric in my sewing room. Look at how great that turned out. I'm so pleased with the how the seams all lined up. So gorgeous. And now I'm just going to do a slip stitch here in order to close. That's one option. You can also close this with a product called Stitch Witchery if you're not a fan of hand sewing. And that is a fusible tape that we're just going to put in there. And we're going to use an iron, and the iron is going to just seal that closed. And it's better than sewing in some cases. Stitch Witchery is really great for hems or anything quick that you need to press. And in this case, a small closure like this. And if you're not a fan of hand sewing, and here's the Stitch Witchery. It's just a fusible tape. It comes 5/8 of an inch wide on a roll like that. And I'm going to trim this down to the size of that opening. And I am also going to trim it the width to about 3/8 of an inch because I think it's a little bit wide here. So I've got my piece, and I'm just going to put that inside the scarf. I've already trimmed it. And I've cut it on a diagonal on either side. You can see I've cut it down to 3/8 of an inch and then a diagonal on either side, just to make it easy for me to slip it in the slot. And I'm heating my iron. I want to make sure that my iron is nice and hot. And I'm just going to carefully, it's got a little bit of texture to it, so it works really well with the fleece. it grabs kind of like Velcro. It'll grab right to that fleece and stay in place nicely. And I am just going to slip that into my 3-inch hole. And so I want to just see just the edge of that. And I don't want it to be lumpy, and I got a little extra there, so I'm going to clean that off. And when I clean it with my scissors, I want to make sure to take that away from my iron because it's glue and it will stick to your iron. All right. Witchery. Trim again. Don't put a spell on me. Come on, let's do this. We are almost finished. And thank you for watching this long video. If you have stayed with me this whole time, I appreciate that. I try to make them shorter, and then just sometimes it doesn't work that way because I want to be methodical and show new sewers everything that they need to know. So I'm just holding a grip on this. I've got that in place, and I am just holding that in place, and I'm going to take a paper towel, or you can use a piece of scrap cotton. I'm just holding that firmly. Your pointer would come in really handy right now. It would be my third hand, right? And I'm going to spray that with some water. And then I'm going to pick up the iron. I've got my iron nice and hot. I know it's hot. I just checked. I'm going to go straight down with it. And I'm going to hold that for about 15-20 seconds. And I'm not going to move that iron forwards and backwards or sideways. I am just coming, up and down straight. Because if you move it back and forth, it's going to move the glue on the fusible tape, and it's going to make it bulky and ugly. So that's the whole point, is you want that damp cloth in between the iron and whatever you're fusing, and then to just go on top and straight down. And then just look at how professional that looks. And it's much faster than hand sewing. So there is our Mobius scarf for Olivia. Look at how gorgeous it turned out. I'm so pleased. Originally, I was going to make this black in the puppy paws, and I couldn't find it. And so I ended up using the plaid because the black went MIA, and I'm just so pleased with how it turned out. So if you need any of the supplies, look at how great your phone just fits right in there. And if you need any of the supplies that I used today, or the measurements or anything, it's all in the description below. So just go ahead and click that. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment if you have a question. You can also wear it doubled like that, and I think Olivia modeled that for you earlier. But thank you guys so much for being with me today. Make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Everyone, happy holidays. Thank you for being with me. God bless. Be well. Keep sewing. It's good for the soul.